This is a birch forest that generated like this in vanilla Minecraft, and this is a block that's powerful enough to break bedrock but can't even hold a feather. Over the years, Minecraft has made some pretty crazy mistakes, and today I'll show you what they are. I'd bet that you don't know most of them because, like the title said, Mojang does not want people to know about them. And some of what I call a mistake might be controversial, so try not to blow up the comments. Before we get into it, the biggest mistake of all is not hitting that subscribe button down below. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of May, so help us out. Now let's dive in. The first mistake is probably something you thought was intentional, but even though Mojang makes it look that way, it's the complete opposite. Originally, and I'm not sure why, floating sand like this was actually a bug, but Mojang decided to keep it in the game. They even added these dust particles that fall from it, and a bug almost turned into a feature. Next, when the elytra was first added in the game, it wasn't usable with fireworks. The elytra was added back in 1.9, while firework boosting was added all the way in 1.14. But players found a way to outsmart that limitation. Back then, if you got a punch bow and shot arrows as you were flying, you could be flying so fast that you'd go past the arrow before it could even hit you, meaning that it would hit you from behind and boost you. This is a lot similar to what fireworks do now, so I wonder if Mojang modeled the feature around that bug. For number 3, when Mojang added parrots to the game, they were literally fed poison. Originally you could feed them cookies which had chocolate in them, and it turns out that chocolate is actually poisonous to parrots in real life, which Mojang quickly fixed. It's also funny that parrots live in the same biome that cocoa beans spawn in. Sometimes Mojang gives a lot of detail to small features, like locked chests, which I mentioned in my last video, but sometimes obvious things sail right over them. For the fourth mistake, I have more of an opinion than a mistake, but I'm sure many of you would agree with me. Every year the mob vote takes place, and sometimes they've turned out fine, but other times they've been pretty bad. The mistake Mojang made here is simply not adding all the mobs. I guess there wouldn't have been much of a vote, but it would have been really cool to have this ice pillager and this blaze boss called the Wildfire. But apart from that controversial one, the next mistake is genuine and kind of strange, but also cool to look at. Back in snapshot 20W28A, if you logged into the game and spawned in a birch forest, you'd be greeted with this sight, where all the trees would be generated symmetrically. Like I said, it's strange but also interesting to look at, and the fact that this was the only biome with this bug makes it even more weird. And while that was a feature that Mojang did remove, this next mistake they made kind of just stayed in the game, like floating sand from earlier. This is a regular zombie and this is a giant zombie, both in the vanilla game. The giant was first introduced in 2010, at the same time as something as old as difficulty modes like peaceful were introduced. As time has gone by, Mojang has done things like remove the giant's AI, making it just stand still, but also fix bugs like not rendering its armor. It's odd that they still added and took away features from a mob that didn't even spawn naturally. But the next mistake is one that's lasted as long as the giant and hasn't been removed at all. Many blocks in the game, like command blocks, chiseled stone bricks, smokers, and blast furnaces, actually don't have symmetrical textures, even though it looks like they do. Looking at the command block, you can see that there are more pixels here than there are here, and with the smoker, the same issue presents itself. The blast furnace, on the other hand, has 3 black lines misaligned from the center. Of course, all of these imperfections are just because you can't line up a line of pixels in the exact middle of an even amount of them, but once you see it, it's really hard to unsee it. And with yet another mistake that originated a while ago, we have the end of the world, the Farlands. This is probably the most notorious of the mistakes, but there's actually a version of them you can visit today. In Java Edition, if you teleport as far as you can, you'll eventually reach the world border, which you can't cross unless you use commands. And in Bedrock Edition, if you teleport really far, the world starts to get a little strange. If this is something that everyone who plays Bedrock knows, I usually only play Java Edition, but a while ago I was playing Bedrock and discovered this. For number 9, in snapshot 20W13A, if you were playing survival and died, something never seen before in Minecraft would happen. When you died, you would respawn, but you wouldn't be able to move at all and only place certain blocks. This is a really weird one and I don't know really why it works, so let's move on. Now for the 10th mistake, we have the icon of Minecraft, the creeper. It's become such an integral part of the game that it's even in the logo, but it was actually never supposed to be that way. A long time ago, as many of you have probably heard, Notch was trying to create the pig, but he mixed up the dimensions so it was vertical instead of horizontal. But because it had the same AI as the pig, making it look at the player, he thought it was creepy and kept it as a monster, the creeper. His friend also suggested that it would explode, which is obviously added. Next, in my last video, I mentioned a way to take no fall damage even if you didn't have a water bucket, powdered snow, cobwebs, or anything like that. Back in 1.19.2, you could simply jump while holding the spacebar and right before you landed, crouch, negating all fall damage. There's not really much detail to this one, so we'll move on. Now, as you might remember from the beginning, there's a block that's powerful enough to pierce through bedrock but can't even hold a feather up. Back in snapshot 21W05A, if you found a drip leaf and some bedrock, you could bone meal it so that it would go straight through the bedrock as if it wasn't there. but the funny thing about this is that if you dropped a feather on it, it would collapse. Finally, for the 13th and last mistake Mojang has made, we have the original Flowerlands. These were caused by going to coordinates so big that they wouldn't even have enough space in the computer. I won't go into the technical stuff too much, but there were 32 bits allocated for coordinates, and if you went beyond that, it got a little strange. The first ever player to reach them was Kilo Crazy Man, which took 9 months, starting back in 2019. And that's it. If you learned something new, remember to hit that subscribe button and watch this video next, where I go over some crazy secrets like how to make a circle in Minecraft.